Welcome to the Freedom Legal Podcast, where you can come to liberate your lifestyle, liberate your practice, and liberate your relationships. We deliver the most up-to-date insights into the most effective and efficient lifestyle designs, business plans, marketing plans, automation software, and delegation strategies for solo practice lawyers and attorneys. Here is your host, experienced lawyer, writer, and entrepreneur, Jonathan Jaussi.
Hello friends, welcome to Freedom Legal, where we liberate the lawyer's lifestyle, the lawyer's relationships, and the lawyer's practice. I'm Jonathan Jaussi, I'm your host today. I heard an amazing story from my torts professor that kind of left me wondering initially, what on earth was he talking about? I was a young, impressionable first-year law student who, like many of you all, may have thought a lot of your professors and wondered how you could become that amazing professional like them, or learned a lot from them. I was mesmerized one time by a story that this torts professor told. He came up to me and he told me a story as we were talking out in the hall after the class, and he says, I had a professor once myself who came up to me and out of nowhere said, John, because this was the name of this professor, he said, John, the law is a jealous mistress. And then he just walked away, leaving my professor to stand there and kind of wonder what in the world that means. So I thought, oh, that's odd. And I was expecting my torts professor here to explain this and say what he meant by that. And then he literally walked away from me. And you could see the giggle on his face. It was like this little bizarre puzzle that had been handed down from the fathers, if you will. So I sat there thinking about this. What does he mean? What does he mean? The law is a jealous mistress. It didn't take long, I can tell you, practicing for myself to figure out exactly what that meant. The law being a jealous mistress has everything to do with life balance, lifestyle, relationships, and managing our practice. You see, when we read these old stories about somebody with a mistress, she takes on a persona that's powerful and fiery and dynamic, and it's a concept we could kind of wrap our heads around, the mistress being a jealous mistress. Wow, here we are with this person that does not want to let you free, doesn't want you to be home with the family or your friends or out doing the things you want to do on weekends. It really kind of wants control. And the law is a jealous mistress. I learned this. This law practice of ours can very quickly take over almost everything. You hear the stories about the lawyers that are, pulling all-nighters at the office, people who are missing children's birthdays, life getting just completely wonky and out of balance. Now, I don't think most of us are in that sort of situation where things are so incredibly out of balance that we feel like the law has just completely invaded everything in our lives. But I think if we do a gut check here, if you look inside and examine the type of life you want to build, there is going to be part of you that says, yeah, I'm seeing the jealous mistress doing her thing. I'm seeing her blocking me from a lot of the other things I want to do in life. And the good news is there is something you can do about it. You can still serve your clients, your business, your practice without losing control. So this idea of balance, of balancing, and controlling the direction of your own practice is just absolutely critical. A few things that I have observed almost immediately about the concept of balance that are directly applicable to your practice are that balance is not a one-time moment. It's not a one-time thing. We think of balance as this idea where we are just completely perfectly right down the center line. When in fact, anybody that's ridden a bicycle understands that you're making hundreds of micro adjustments per minute. And balancing is like that. Same with the practice of law. There are things that come into our lives that start to shove us sideways one way or to push us around another way, and we have to stop and say, okay, where do I want to go? How do I want to be balanced, and make some micro adjustments? So that's the first key that I would recommend for you to examine. What are the little adjustments that I can make today? Maybe just 3 of them, small things that you could grab onto and say, okay, I would be doing more of the things I want to do. I would be going more in the direction I want to go if I did these 3 things. If you could pick those 3 things and really focus on them just from day to day for a couple of days, I think you might be surprised how much more in control and how much less controlled you feel. I see this concept come up in many business people's lives, and I think it has to do with a feeling and a want to be important. We want to be important, we want to be needed, and we want to be impactful. I know I did. I really wanted to be impactful in the practice of law. I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And I found that the reward I was seeking and receiving in the practice of law was that I actually did feel very impactful. I felt very strong in a way that I hadn't felt before. I felt like I was able to go into people's lives, fix problems that they couldn't fix themselves, and to be highly valued from them. Now, that can be a really exciting thing, but it's a lot like the concept of the jealous mistress. It's kind of exciting, kind of fun, but very quickly it starts to take hold of us. Well, how does that happen? That it takes hold of us in a way that begins to impact our lifestyle, our relationships, and our practice in a way that we don't want. I see this happen a lot. I saw it happen with myself, and I would love to hear from you in the comments and in the discussion how you've seen lawyers get out of balance. I see that it was really hard for me to hold boundaries with the practice of law at first until I became aware of what this concept was. It was really hard for me to put it down. I'd find myself thinking about cases non-stop. Like, I'm in a conversation with my spouse and we're talking and she's speaking to me and I realize I wasn't even listening. Could you believe that? I just, have you ever been in that situation where you're in a conversation with somebody and they're not even listening to you? How does that feel? And I became conscious of like, okay, how am I making people feel around me because I'm so preoccupied with the practice of law is actually affecting my relationships. The other thing I found with boundaries is I had a hard time leaving the office because there's this old adage that many of us have been taught that you don't play until you get the work done. Well, is the work ever done for an attorney? I don't think so. There's always something more you could do. There's always something more you could be focusing on, the way you could do the job just a little bit better. And so that can become a bit of a death march for us where we just go till we drop to the exclusion of everything else. I found that in my life starting to happen as well. I had a hard time leaving the office. My spouse never knew when I was going to be home because I just was going to be home when I ran out of gas. I just couldn't do anymore. So I had to set some boundaries around that as well. So that is the second piece I definitely want to share with you and encourage you to do as an actionable item. Set up a boundary of when you will work. And I mean a firm boundary. This is going to be a tough one for a lot of you. Let me just go ahead and tell you this because we understand boundaries and deadlines. We get statutes of limitation. That's the number one thing lawyers get sued for is breaking a statute of limitation. So we get this, but we don't get it for us. Why do we do that? We don't get it for us. So I'm going to encourage you and challenge you to set a boundary when you are done working. And I mean really done. You're not going to think about it. You're not going to talk about it. You're not going to take texts from your clients. You're really done. I mean done with a capital UN. complete. That's going to be quite an exercise. Now, some of you are thinking, oh, I can do that. That's easy. Good. Good for you if you've mastered that. Take it up to the next level. Some of you, that's really going to be hard for. But if you've mastered that, take it up to the next level and say, okay, I want to have a clear transition into the other things besides the practice of law that make my life fun, that make my life enjoyable, the things that light me up. Because someone asked me the other day, what is it that you really do as a podcaster, a speaker, and a mentor? I struggled for a while to kind of encapsulate that, but I realized that I help lawyers feel again. And what I mean by that is we all know how to structure plans and to do things strategically. We're attorneys. This is what we do. But have we thought about building the kind of feelings we want to have in our lifestyle, in our relationships, in our practice? So this podcast is going to be focused more on that part of it. How do we want to feel in our lifestyle, our practice, and our relationships, and how do we want to get there? What are the things we need to do in our lifestyle, adjustment-wise, without letting our clients down, without letting ourselves down, or anyone else around us, the little adjustments that we can make to better enjoy our lifestyle? What are the things we can do in our relationships to where we're more available to the people who count on us, that need us, that want us, who we committed to show up for? What are those things we could do? And what do we have to do to work on our practice to make it what it needs to be so that we're available in all of the areas that we're being asked to be available? I think the good news is that it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be impossible. This concept of the law being a jealous mistress, I've actually decided that it's a false concept. The law is really not a jealous mistress. It's just a process of high energy, high stakes, and high expectations that you have to play, having first come in and set the rules. Set the rules so that you win. An example of setting the rules before you play was given to me by my father, who was an attorney who practiced for 40 years. He recently retired, but he told me, you know what civil procedure rule number 1 is, don't you? And of course I started spouting something about, law and equity being merged, and that's the law, that's a rule we never actually use in civil procedure. He says, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Rule number 1 is the lawyer gets paid. And if you don't remember rule number 1, you're going to end up in all kinds of trouble. You're going to end up with people not paying you, with a bunch of frustration, resenting your clients, etc., etc. Well, that's a good analogy for what we're really talking about here in setting up boundaries and setting up intentional behaviors around our practice, around our lifestyle, around our relationships. Because what is the payment you seek out of the practice of law? What do you want to get out of it? It's not just money, and I guarantee you it's not just money. It is the lifestyle that allows you to enjoy the things that you love. It is the relationships that you have. How should your practice contribute to those key relationships? Maybe you haven't thought of that. Maybe you have. I'd love to hear your ideas. And finally, the practice itself. What does it need to feel like? So, I've had too many experiences where I've seen the unhappiness that failing to apply some of these simple principles, setting boundaries around your practice and being intentional about what you want it to be as it relates to your lifestyle, your relationships, and the type of practice that you do. I've seen too many attorneys that are unhappy, that slowly become cranky, depressed people. And when I say I help lawyers feel again, We've all felt anger, we've all felt stress, we've all felt competition that come naturally in this type of practice. But what about joy? What about the exhilaration of success? What about all of the other positive things we want to feel again? There is a cumulative and almost imperceptible drag that happens in this profession to a lot of people that just piles up on us if we're not very intentional to reverse it with a whole lot of positive, intentional building of what you want. This week, I hope you will take 3 small things that you could do to better enjoy your lifestyle, your relationships, and your practice as an attorney, and write them down. Resolve to do something with that. I already know that we know where we're out of balance. We know. We don't need me or anyone else to tell us, hey, your life is out of balance or your life is not quite what you want. We know that, and we're all working on that constantly, but just write down 3 areas. These are the small ones, the little adjustments that you can make now. Do that. And let's talk about those in the forum generally. What are the things that you think lawyers could do, the small things that don't require a change of a job or some big massive rewriting of your lifestyle? What are the small things that we can do that make the biggest difference? I can't wait for you to join the discussion, and I'm really excited to learn from you as well.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom Legal Podcast. Please visit the podcast website to submit your questions and feedback. Let us help you liberate your lifestyle, liberate your practice, and liberate your relationships. We'll see you next time.